Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Dr. Gus Penix, President of the Nicholas County Board of Education. I'd like to call this regularly scheduled meeting of the board to order at this time. Would you please rise and join the board in the vote of silent reflection? It gives us opportunity to reflect on those things for which we have to be thankful, but also to clear our hearts and minds for the business we're going to consider here this evening. So a moment of silent reflection, please. Thank you. Would you please join the board in saluting our country with the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May be seated. The next item of business on our agenda this evening is to approve the minutes for the meeting held on February the 3rd, 2020. Board members, you received those electronically. I think there's been one correction that's already been made, and that was just simply in the name of the board members. And are there any other corrections or additions to those minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes for the meeting held on February the 3rd, 2020 meeting? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Amick moves. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Rogers seconds. Any further discussion in regard to the minutes for February 3rd, 2020 meeting? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. Second item on this evening's agenda is a discussion, and we're going to do a little presentation to begin with. I'm going to actually do the presentation, so Mr. Amick, you're in charge of the meeting while I'm over there, so I'm going to do the presentation at this time.
Well, before you get started, I just got an email from Sarah Lee about the math field day results, and our goal is being a top 10 in the state this year, and Tony and Sarah and the principals think we can do it, but I see here that Panther Creek took the first 3 places in 4th grade, took the first 3 places in 5th grade, and in 8th grade or 6th grade, Summersville Middle took the first 4 places. Richwood Middle had a 5th place and a 6th. And in the 7th grade, Summersville Middle took the first, took the 2nd through 5th, and first place went to Richwood. And in the 8th grade, Summersville Middle took first, Richwood Middle took 2nd, 3rd and 4th, and Richwood took 5th. And the team winners in each one of these was Panther Creek, and then Summersville Middle. And I just appreciate it. And then in high school, Nicholas County took the first 9 places. And I figure somewhere in here she has the writing. That'll be coming up. But we're just moving on academically. I just think that's worth letting everyone know how well our students are doing in this whole county. And I know we've made a lot of changes with principals retiring, and the superintendent's interviewed new principals and told them what the goal of the board was and her goal. So this is great, just things like this.
Very good news. It's good to hear. I'm sure that we'll be recognizing those students in the very near future here at our board meeting, so we look forward to that.
We have another speaker that wants to sign up.
The
Time's up.
time is up, but you have to sign up by 15 till. So.
It's in policy.
I'm going to begin. The presentation tonight is entitled Moving On. You can see it on the board there if you want to turn and look that way. you can kind of follow it. I'm going to share with you some things tonight that I think are very important and that we need to bring closure to our thinking in regard to where we are with moving forward with construction. The presentation, I actually made this presentation back in 2018 in the summer, just after we had reached the mediated agreement between the Nicholas County Board of Education and the West Virginia Board of Education. That was done in May of 2018, and then right after that, or actually it was done in April, then in May we had the approval of the amended CEFP for Nicholas County. So the mediated agreement between Nicholas County and the State Board was the guideline by which we revised our CEFP, and we got that approved by the Nicholas County Board of Education, West Virginia Board of Education, and the School Building Authority during the summer and early October of 2018. The amended CEFP is the driving factor about how we will go about rebuilding our schools in Nicholas County as a result of the 2016 flood. Over these past 18 months, we have been involved almost completely with doing the environmental assessment studies, the EAs. Those were required by FEMA. We had to have those done. Those are now complete. That's good news. And we have now been awarded our funding. We had to have those complete prior to that, and so we now have those done, and the funding has been awarded. So just a preliminary to what we're going to talk about. And I'm going to show you a couple things at the beginning of this presentation which are important to the decision making, not only just at the County Board of Education level, but at the state level. We have some very serious facts that we have to look at, not only as a county, but as a state as well. So I'd like to share some information with you, and just bear with me. The first one deals with our state population. In 2010, we had 1.853 million people. In 2019, we have 1.79 million people. We've lost roughly 63,000 people in our state over the last 10 years. Now, the way that's calculated, and I use the U.S. Census Bureau information, the way it's calculated is they take the population estimate for 2010, they add in the births, they subtract out the deaths, and then they add in the in-migrations and subtract out the out-migrations, and it gives them the population estimate for 2019. It's covering a 10-year period of time. But in this, based on a 365 days a year over the past 10 years, we've been losing 18 people a year, or 18 people a day in our state. And that's the net loss we have as a result of outward migration and deaths being greater than the births and people coming into the state. Then if you look at it over the 52 weeks per year over the 10 years, we've been losing about 100, that actual figure should say 126 people per week over that period of time. So every week, 126 people in the state are leaving, population-wise. And here's a fact that comes right from the census. Of all 50 states, West Virginia has the largest decline in population over the last 10 years. We've declined at 2.5%. Now you might say, well, these are not pretty figures to look at. They're reality. We have to look at them. And they're very important as we make decisions at state level and county level. Also, I would like to take a look at our student public school enrollments, not only in West Virginia and Nicholas County as well. In the state, and this is according to the West Virginia Department of Education's website, in 2010 to 2011, that school year, we had 282,000, a little bit over that number, 282,000 students. 2019-20, we had 261,633. We have dropped 20,497 students in the public schools of West Virginia in the last 10 years. This is reality. This is what we have to face as a state, and looking at how we can make that better. I think that the greatest things we can do is provide a quality education for our kids and get them college and career ready, that they can, and hopefully attract, we can keep them here, but also attract businesses and industry to come into not only our state, but into our region. So, but this loss of 20,000 students, again, from the State Board of Education's website, represents a decline in enrollment of 7.3%. Note there, important fact, the bulk of the decline occurred over the past 5 years. 15,504 students left our state in the last 5 years. That's better than 75% of the loss of our students in the state of West Virginia occurred in the last 5 years. Now let's look at Nicholas County. In Nicholas County, our enrollment in 2010-11 was 4,076 kids. Since that time, we have our current year, we have 3,587. We've dropped 489 students in that same period of time. That represents a decline in Nicholas County Schools enrollment of 12% of our students over the last 10 years. The bulk of that decline, like the state, has occurred in the last 5 years. Roughly 60% of our loss in the last 10 years has been in the last 5. Again, these are realities that we have to face as a school board when we're making decisions. As a state, the legislature makes decisions, and those people at the state level, they're sad but true, and we have to own up to them and accept them. The hope is that that trend will change. And we did actually have some predictions from West Virginia University when we did our last CEFP that said that we would see a change in, and it would go in the other direction, we'd start to gain. That never happened. And whether it was the decline of coal or whatever, but it never happened. We have continued to decline in our enrollment since the 1980s. And we've been declining at an amount of at least 1.09% per year, and maybe even greater in these last few years. So we hope that changes, but we see no signs of that changing. So we have to make decisions that are important to our school system based upon the facts and reality. So as I go on in this presentation, I want to talk a little bit about the Nicholas County Board of Education. County boards of education are empowered by the state constitution and the West Virginia legislature through legislation to make decisions regarding educational matters relevant to their respective counties. The Nicholas County Board of Education, just like all the other 54 counties, consists of 5 members, and they were elected by county-wide vote of the citizens of Nicholas County. Now, everybody probably knows those 2 facts, but it bears repeating so that we understand who we are. We're the Board of Education. And we're elected as the Board of Education to make decisions regarding the educational matters for Nicholas County schools, for the students of Nicholas County, for the citizens of Nicholas County. We were elected to do that. And there are some people who don't want to accept that fact, but it's reality. We are the board, and we're elected to make those decisions. We have made those decisions, and we're going to make decisions, and we're going to continue to make them. Well, I'll show you our rationale for thinking as we make decisions in just a minute, but it's important to understand that we are the board, the Nicholas County Board. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is in regard to the Nicholas County Board. Throughout the entire process of dealing with floods, flood recovery, and rebuilding schools, the Nicholas County Board of Education has made decisions based on what is in the best educational interest of all Nicholas County students. And I want to emphasize the word "all" there because that's important. We can't focus with tunnel vision on one school. We have to focus on all the schools and all the kids. So that's been the basis that we've made our decisions by. We made it in the best interest of all kids in the county's school system. And then secondly, what is in the best interest of all citizens of Nicholas County, the taxpayers? You're the people who have to pay the bill ultimately for our schools, and we want to make decisions in the best interest of you as well. Now, the Nicholas County School, I said I want to talk about philosophy. The overriding philosophy of the Nicholas County Board of Education and decision-making has been and will continue to be grounded in the facts and reality of the times in which we live. Declining state and county population, enrollment demographics, and certainly the financial stability of our county school system. We have to maintain fiscal soundness in our school system, and we will make our decisions based upon that. And that's been our philosophy. Now, with this philosophical approach guided decisions made by the elected board in 2016 when the flood occurred, and was overwhelmingly endorsed by county voters in the 2018 election. When 3 people were either elected, 1 was elected to the board and 2 others were re-elected to the board with the same philosophy about how we operate our school system. Now, as we go on, I want to talk about a little bit about these 4 areas: the mediated agreement between the State Board and the Nicholas Board, the amended CEFP, FEMA funding, and the environmental assessments. So we're going to talk a little bit about each one of those. Again, these are facts that have been stated before, and as I get into the amended CEFP, I'm going to read directly from it so that there's no confusion as to what it actually says and what's actually in the document. The mediated agreement. The mediated agreement was developed by 3-member teams representing the West Virginia Board of Education and the Nicholas County Board of Education. The mediation process was guided by the Consensus Building Institute, CBI, and International Mediation Organization. As a result of the mediation process, the West Virginia Board of Education and the Nicholas County Board of Education reached consensus on the guidelines for moving forward with planning and construction of new school facilities in Nicholas County. The mediation process concluded on April the 30th, 2018, after numerous meetings of those 2 teams and a public hearing on the agreement. The mediation agreement guided the development of Nicholas County Board of Education's amended Comprehensive Educational Facilities Plan, the CEFP, which details what will occur in building new schools. The plan was approved by the Nicholas County Board of Education and West Virginia Board of Education in May of 2018 and by the West Virginia School Building Authority in October 2018. Here are the tenets of that agreement. That agreement says to relocate Richwood High School and Richwood Middle School to the Cherry River Elementary campus pending final approval and evaluation and approval from the FEMA. That has occurred. It's over with. It's done. Richwood High School and Richwood Middle School will become a community school providing grades 6 through 12 with academic classrooms, auditorium, band room, gymnasium, and cafeteria while striving to ensure safe, sanitary, extracurricular facilities and athletic fields. Again, these are words directly. This is just directly from the Comprehensive Educational Facility Plan. The schools will retain current names, teams, mascots, and school cultures. The amended CEFP also states that we will relocate Nicholas County High School, Summersville Middle School, and the Nicholas County Career and Technical Center to the Glade Creek campus pending final evaluation and approval from FEMA. Already occurred. Nicholas County High School will become a comprehensive high school incorporating the Career Center into its campus. Summersville Middle School and the new comprehensive Nicholas County High School will provide grades 6 through 12 with academic classrooms, auditorium, band room, gymnasium, and cafeteria, and incorporating a career and technical education center while striving to ensure safe, sanitary, extracurricular facilities and athletic fields. The schools will retain current names, teams, mascots, and school cultures. Now, the CEFP goes on to address other aspects as well as just building buildings. Families and students will be empowered to select the middle and high school that best meets their educational needs. Schools will be designed to be scalable to meet future demographics and enrollment changes. The Nicholas County Board of Education will structure transportation to minimize class time disruption for Richwood High School students to participate in career and technical education programs at the Glade Creek site on a partial day basis. We want to get kids there at the start of the day. They'll spend their day, half of the day there at noon. Another group comes over in the afternoon to do those completer programs that is required if you're going to complete a program in career and technical education. The Nicholas County Board of Education will strive to provide opportunities for students to earn CTE credit at Richwood High School and or in the Richwood attendance area based on student interest, actual student enrollment, labor market demands, and availability of resources to provide programs. These are direct words from the Comprehensive Educational Facility Plan. It goes on to say, and this is actually the final statement here, that indicates that full implementation of this plan will allow Nicholas County Schools to reach its optimum potential in achieving a more cost-effective delivery method for its countywide education program, while still providing a high-quality education to prepare all students to be career and college ready. Again, I hate to read to you, but I don't want there to be any confusion as to what that plan calls for, and that's the plan that we're following. We have followed to date. We are miles down the road now with the completion of EA studies, and I just want to make sure that it's fully understood what's in that plan. Now, our next slide gets into the final FEMA funding calculation. The Nicholas County Board of Education chose the FEMA 428 Sandy Recovery Act funding plan to build our new schools. With that plan, we were able to maximize dollars under the guidance of FEMA, and the dollars that we're receiving, according to FEMA, the reports that you heard, the total amount that we received is $175,562,000 and some change. Now, what's been a little bit confusing about that is that anytime FEMA does a project, it requires a matching fund from the state. Well, there is one plan that you can go that doesn't require a matching fund, but you only get 65% of the federal funding, so we did not consider that at all. But in the plans that we chose, there had to be a matching fund from the state. And currently, as you saw, Governor Manchin, Governor Justice, and former Governor Manchin, and now Senator Manchin and Senator Capito, they expressed that we were receiving $131,672,000 roughly in federal funding at the funding rate of 75% federal and 25% would be funded by the state, or roughly $44 million, which gives you the $175.5 million. Now, there was a threshold for the 2016 flood that once Nicholas County got across that, once the state of West Virginia got across that threshold with all the flood recovery that has to go on, the houses and all the rise and all that type of thing, once we crossed the $253 million threshold, then the federal kicks in 90% and the state kicks in 10%. Nicholas County, in their award, pushed the state across the $253 million threshold. And so therefore, now we have federal funding at $158 million, and the state will have to kick in 70. So it's a big state savings to the state of West Virginia. I'm glad we took the time to work through the FEMA 428 Sandy Recovery Act to secure the greater amount of funding for our schools. Now, there's some flexibility with that funding that we will have in there. There's flexibility. The FEMA 428 funding provides opportunity for Nicholas County to retrofit the current Nicholas County High School to house Summersville Elementary School at a cost of approximately $1 million. So we're fortunate that we can have that opportunity. But retrofitting the current Nicholas County High School to house Summersville Elementary will save county taxpayers approximately $20 to $30 million in new construction. We move out there. Otherwise, we're going to have to build a new. Otherwise, we would have to build a new Summersville Elementary, and we'd have to come to the taxpayers and say, "Would you pass a construction bond, whatever amount, $20 million?" And we would hopefully be able to secure some school building authority aid along with that to help soften the cost of that. But we have no guarantee that they will kick in anything. But through this plan, we are now able to see some savings for our citizens and not have to go to them for construction money. In addition, by securing the 428 funding, the Nicholas County Board of Education will be able to replace and or upgrade half of its schools. Did you get that? Replace or upgrade? In this process, we'll be building a new Richwood Middle, Richwood High. We'll be building Summersville Middle, Nicholas County High School, Career Center. We'll be able to affect Summersville Elementary and also Cherry River Elementary in this construction project. That's half of our schools. We have 14 schools in the county. That will be at a great savings for repairs to a lot of the buildings to bring them up to scale or to rebuild them. So there's some good things that are coming as well from the 428 funding. Now, we're going to talk about the environmental assessments, which were just completed. Our project has two parts. It has the Cherry River aspect and it has the Glade Creek aspect. There is one project, two parts. The Cherry River assessment, the field work began in the summer of 2018 and it was completed in June of 2019. There was a public hearing held in July of last year, I think it was July 27th at Cherry River Elementary. And then FEMA completed the final EA report for Cherry River in September of 2019. It's completed. For the Glade Creek property, the field work was completed in September of 2019. The public hearing was in October of 2019, and the final EA report was completed by FEMA on the Glade Creek site in late December. Now, the total project, Nicholas County Board of Education's for both projects, one project, but for both sites, the final approval for this was January the 31st, 2020, and the funding was just released a couple of weeks ago on February the 3rd, 2020. So we are now ready and poised to move forward with getting our schools underway. Okay, immediate steps that we're going to be looking at here. Tonight we're going to discuss in our meeting the purchase of the Glade Creek property. We'll be acting on that later this evening. And then we will be breaking ground at both sites within the next few weeks. So that's good news for us all the way around. Here's work in progress, and I want to qualify on a couple of these. Work in progress, we will be completing designs for both sites in the next few days. We're still finalizing on the enrollment numbers for both schools, or both sides, both the Glade Creek and the Cherry River side. And then after we do that, we have to put that out to determine cost estimates to make sure that we're living within the total amount of money that we have. And then we'll approve the final designs. They will come to the board for approval, the final designs for both schools. And then after that, we will release bids, and we'll accept bids and approve bids. And then we'll begin the actual construction and move toward project completion. Now, again, the top of the list we hope to accomplish soon, very quickly. The bottom of the list, of course, is going to take much more time as we go through that. So the commitment is, the Board of Education is committed to moving forward, full steam ahead to fulfill the tenets of the mediated agreement and the amended County Comprehensive Educational Facilities Plan as presented here this evening. So with that in mind, it's time to get our students in new schools. It's time to move on. So that's the end of my presentation. Are there any questions in regard to the materials that have been presented here this evening?
I have about three. I'd like you to clarify. Earlier you mentioned how many students were losing a year, and you went percentage. Well, can you give us the number? How many students were losing a year?
Okay, that on the first slide, we're losing in the county.
Yeah.
Over the last 10 years, I didn't put that into the slide. I don't have it with me right now, but over the last 10 years, we've lost 489 students.
So that would roughly be 70 a year?
Well,
Where's Chris?
50. Let's just say 50 a year, but the larger part of that has been during the last 5 years. We lost 283 in the last 5 years.
All right, my second question is to take care of Nicholas County High School to make it an elementary. You said $1 million. Now that does not come out of the money that FEMA has approved.
That allows us the opportunity to use funds, yes, that we can, yes.
But we can use the FEMA money?
Yes, yes.
I didn't think we could.
Yes, we can.
We can.
That was built into the plan.
That was built into it, and it's, with the monies that we will have left over, in any project, we will be able to do that for Nicholas County.
Okay, my third question is, when the money comes, when FEMA releases money, does it come here, or does it go down to Charleston?
The money would actually be released to Charleston, and then we would ask to receive the funding in return as we spend it. Now I'll ask Kevin. Would you care to qualify on that?
Sure. Yeah, as we spend funds, we requisition those funds to the SBA, then it goes to West Virginia Homeland Security for emergency operations, then on to FEMA. Once it gets all those approvals, FEMA will release that money and it'll flow back down to the county so we can then pay the contract.
Yeah, that's the way I understood it on our last phone call last week, that they're just not going to give us $177 million to put in the bank and spend as we move forward. As we move forward and build, for instance, when our architect turns in an invoice, then we send that invoice through the channels to the SBA and all to be approved, and then that is paid after the fact. Am I correct, Dr. Pennington, in that process?
It's my
It's a
understanding.
reimbursement program.
It's a reimbursement program.
Thank you.
Since it's a 1,000 capacity school and you only have 400 students moving in, what are you going to do with the extra space?
Which school are you speaking of now?
Nicholas County High School.
What we do with the extra space, we'll be able to utilize it for other programs as well, but we mainly want to retrofit it to fit the elementary and be able to house all the students there.
How much money of FEMA will be spent on the western end of the county and how much will be spent on the eastern end of the county where most of the devastation occurred?
That will be, according to this plan, we'll spend the money according to the way we design the buildings, and those will be designed based upon the enrollments that will be in those schools.
How much is it?
Well, I don't know right now till we get cost estimates, I don't know.
Well, you've been giving estimates of 150 million for the western end and 3 or less for the eastern end.
I haven't been giving those figures.
Yeah, that's been in the media.
I haven't been giving any.
Well, how much?
Well, we'll know when we get the cost estimates. Yes.
What exactly does the high school need to update for $1 million to bring in a grade school? Because that high school looks pretty good last time I
Well,
was
the high
there.
school's been very well cared for and it's in good condition. But
So $1
we have to-
million just seems like a large number
Well,
to bring in little kids.
A lot of retrofitting of the building, downsize in toiletries and that toilet areas, and then as well as playground areas. And then we have to make sure that it's safe with being on the highway there, and then also the different levels of playgrounds we have to have for preschool and then regular school, and then modifying the classrooms to meet any special needs that we would have there. Okay, if there are no further questions, then we'll move on to the next item, which is on our agenda. Yeah. Good job, thank you. We're going to hear from delegations this time. I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people to speak, and our first one tonight is Mr. Moose. You have 5 minutes to speak, Mr. Moose. If you come up to the platform, state your name and your address, speak,
Hang on, let me get my clock.
Pardon me?
and she'll tell you when to start.
Yeah, but start me till this time.
Don't start you till it's time. 5 minutes, is that what you said, 5 minutes?
5 minutes. That's our policy.
You ready?
Ready?
Go.
I come before you on behalf of the children of,
Oh, wait a
Mr.
minute.
Moose, just a
Wait a
second. Could you turn around more where we can see you as well? Just pull that around a little bit there. Just pull your podium around a little bit, so,
He's reset his clock.
there you go. There you go.
Do you need the mic? There you go.
Now reset his time and he'll have the full 5 minutes.
You ready?
okay.
Okay, go.
I come before you on behalf of the children of Eastern Nicholas County whose parents have asked me to speak to you. I also speak for many teachers and I speak for the taxpayers. Nearly 4 years since the flood, and we have more questions than ever before, and we have never trusted you less. We are most confused following the week's press release about the FEMA money. Why did the superintendent dodge questions about how much is to be spent separately on the 2 sites? Why did the press release only mention 3 schools being built instead of 5 that your plan includes. Nothing seems to be ready yet, and the superintendent keeps blaming others for the delay and threatening more delay if things don't go her way. Why, after 4 years, are you only now attempting to negotiate moving the right-of-way to the business park and purchasing the Watergate property? The superintendent promised to unify the county following the 2018 election. We've never been more divided, and certainly the people who are unhappy with your building plan are not few and far between, as the superintendent told the press. 3,106 people voted against the incumbents, which amounted to 51.5%. And it certainly was not an endorsement of board policies. People tell me of being harassed by some central office personnel. Parents are denied volunteer status. Substitutes are denied jobs. While students tell me they did nothing today because they couldn't get subs. Test scores are plummeting, enrollment is dropping everywhere as parents leave or decide to homeschool. And why do you not enforce county social media policy among the members of central office staff? Why do you allow personal attacks and the distribution of inaccurate information by your own employees instead of enforcing principles of decency and civility and tolerance through social media? Are the members of your staff the administrators of the One Nicholas County site? You should find out. Also, the taxpayers of Nicholas County have never had more questions. You seem to be spending money like it's a bottomless pit. All decisions about the schools, which are paid for by tax dollars, seem to be under the cloak of the executive session. Who, for example, has to pay the $444,850 in fines for building the school in the business park? Who will have to pay another $573,538 in fines if the VOTEC isn't built there? Of course, that's why you want to relocate an undamaged, centrally located VOTEC, which contains additional property for expansion. The VOTEC in Craigsville is operating at capacity. It has about an equal amount of Richwood High School and Nicholas County High School students enrolled. Will those fines be added to the purchase price of $2,483,000 for the business park? Can you pay federal fines with federal money? Will the $6,000 per month lease you have been paying on the property, which has been sitting there for 15 years and no one was interested, be deducted from the purchase price? That amounts to $288,000 over 4 years. When the superintendent said seize the day, did she really mean seize the dough? Why does the amount to be spent on Eastern Nicholas keep dropping? How many more children do you plan to hurt before your bank account reaches the right number? Aren't you supposed to represent all children? Why are 47% of the students in Eastern Nicholas only receiving 17% of the FEMA money? This relentless secrecy and lies has created a terrible climate in this county. I've never seen it so bad. Is there not one of you on this board who is independent? Every time something comes up, you vote 5-0 for anything put before you. Even the most ridiculous thing, most recently, when she proposed to investigate property adjacent to the business park for $500,000, where we could put a zip line and a cross-country track. Is it any wonder that you're known as the Summersville 5-0? You give her glowing evaluations and pay raises, but she doesn't need your representation. Teachers need your representations. Parents need representatives. Taxpayers need representatives. My grandchildren need representatives, and not just the ones living on one end of the county.
Time's up.
I feel like I have been, he has challenged me on almost every single statement that he made, and I made notations. So I feel that it's no more than fair for me to correct some of the untruths that's just been stated here.
Okay. Wish to speak?
I would like, yes, this is,
And I'd like to
I'm
respond.
not going to let this go unchecked.
I'd like to have time to
No,
respond.
you've had your time to speak. You had some pretty solid accusations there, so she's going to address them.
Have a seat, sir.
Mr. Moose, I know during his last election stood for the vow, he vowed to,
5 minutes.
what he had planned to do was to actually terminate me and ask others to follow him. Well, and he's just stated many things that are absolutely inaccurate. Dodging questions, this board has answered questions put before them. They've had continuous hearings. We've had open meetings. This has been, our sessions have been presented on TV, so there's not been any dodging of questions. And as far as 3 schools, I cannot help what the media released. The CEFP and the savings to this county has always been noted from the beginning, from our conversations. It's not been something, I didn't control the media release. I had nothing to say or the wording toward that. So maybe you need to talk to your representatives, Mr. Manchin and Capito, about their media release. I can't control what they
I have
said.
spoken
And as
to
you
them.
know, excuse me, as you know, that this board has done nothing but try to save the taxpayers of this county money. And as far as attempting to move the right-of-way and waiting and nothing's being done, well, first of all, the right-of-way came about during a traffic study. So the traffic study was completed and it called for secondary entrance to the park. And because of the calling of that, we had to establish a right-of-way. So it's not like we've been dragging our feet. And Mr. Moose, you may also be aware that Kanawha County was flooded at the same time. They've only got funding for 1 school. Our entire projects are completed. And we went for the 428 money, which gave us about $1 million more than we would have had. $100 million more than what we would have had. To unify the county, I tried to do such a thing. I actually had a meeting in Richwood. I called all of the key players at the time, Jeremy Rose, Chuck Tusing, Stacy Raffo, Sharon Gladwell, the mayor. I called everybody that I could think of, Tammy Coleman. They came, they listened. And I tried to unify, but it doesn't matter. I listened to what they had to say. But they didn't want anything. They wanted their small traditional school. So that's exactly what I'm proposing that they get. And as far as enforcing central office social media, you know, there's no social media violations for this central office. And I resent the fact of someone always trying to say that One Nicholas County has something to do with this board office. I have nothing to do with One Nicholas County. Never have and don't ever plan to. And as far as spending money and just stating that we're spending all of this money is absolutely ridiculous because everything is accounted for. Our audits come out clean. We spend our money for the betterment of our students and our schools. The schools look better now than what they've looked in years. Go check BRIM reports. As far as fines, I'm not paying any fines. What I'm asking this board is to pay the purchase right price of $2.4 million for the property for Glade Creek of 71 acres. I'm not paying any fines. And as far as the zip line, I'm sorry that you don't have a broad enough mind to realize that we do have opportunities here for tourism and zip lining and mountain biking and paddling and all those types of things are available, but you have to teach your students how to do that and be entrepreneurs. So just because you don't understand this concept doesn't mean that it's a harebrained idea. I'm forward thinking, I have been, and I've worked tirelessly for this county for almost 4 years, and I resent the fact of you come up here making unfounded attacks on me.
When I see the treasurer's reports,
Well, sure, you can see anything. It's all public material. We present it every month. Now, let's see. Robin Cutler, you're next. Who? Oh, Phil, I'm sorry.
Well,
Okay, all right. Mrs. Cutler, if you would you state your name and your address for the record?
My name is Robin Cullip. I'm running for House of Delegates in District 44. I'm a public school teacher, so I know what it means to go to work every day and face our students. I know what it means to have smaller class sizes, and I know what it means to have a safe and a beautiful school that all of our students can call home. There's nothing more important to a student than feeling like they have ownership where they go to school at. Teachers and students are in those buildings more often than what they are at home. So keeping our students safe and secure and feeling that sense of involvement is what we all want. And I know that everybody sitting in this room is here for the same reason. We're all here to make sure that our students get what they need. We're all here to make sure that our students have what they need to be successful. The numbers are showing that people are leaving our state every single day. We know that. Why are they leaving? We need to find that out. We also need to be able to keep them here, and being able to keep a small school in its community is vital to keeping people here and wanting to stay here and raise their own families. I have 3 grandchildren. One of them, actually 2 of them, will be attending a school in Nicholas County. I hope that they are able to get that sense of involvement and community. I look forward to working with both schools, but we need to focus on the students. That's why we're all here. We should not be here to battle it out. The battle has been over with, in my opinion. In my opinion, Richwood won a great deal. I've seen so many schools get consolidated when the town didn't even have a say in it. I've worked for Challenge West Virginia for several years, a small group organization that fought to keep schools alive. We all know that small schools are best for our students. Richwood won a great feat in keeping their school there. The numbers, we haven't been presented with the correct numbers tonight. I don't feel like there was an actual representation of how many students are in Richwood and how many students attend Nicholas County High School. I would like to see those numbers. I would like to see how many people have left Richwood High School or Richwood area and how many people are leaving the Summersville area. I think that before the schools should have been approved, we should have seen those numbers. If Richwood is not losing the amount of schools that Summersville, Nicholas County High School is losing, then Richwood should not be getting a smaller school, and Nicholas County should not be getting the large Taj Mahal, as everyone's referring it to. Both schools are important. Richwood won because they're strong. And as your delegate, I will work hard to make sure that every student in Richwood High School, Richwood Middle School, Cherry River, Gauley River, I will work hard to make sure that they get what they deserve, and I will work hard to make sure that that sense of community stays inside of that community. I'm here tonight to listen and to learn.
Let me caution just a little bit here. You cannot be doing a political campaign, but I don't think you are, but just stay wherever you read the facts you want to stay. But this
Well,
is
I'm
not
here to
political.
listen and to learn because I'm not 100% on all the facts. I came with questions because I've read from what both groups are saying. So I want to leave here more knowledgeable than what I came. And I believe that if we work together, we'll be able to do what's best for the students, and that is get them out of the pods and get them into nice, safe schools within their community. I hope that I will be able to come here every time we have a meeting. You may get sick of looking at me before it's over with. Hopefully, I will be able to help Richwood in any way that I can and keep a nice, objective stance for both, because at the end of the day, again, we're here for the students and what's best for our students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. At this time, Mr. Spencer, Luke Spencer.
I want to give my time to Mr. Spencer.
And your name is?
Rebecca Parsons.
Rebecca Parsons. You want to give your time? There was some other lady that...
I've also yielded my time to Spencer.
And your name is Katie Mortensen?
Yes.
Okay, so speak.
Thank you. I'm not sure I'll take that time, but thank you anyhow.
Wait a minute.
She'll
I
take-
gotta reset my
State your
phone.
name and address when she tells you.
Okay, ready?
Yes.
Okay, go.
My name is Luke Spencer. I'm from Muddlety at 41 Lazy Lane, so just north of Summersville. Been a lifelong resident of Nicholas County, so my kids are all grown now, but I have grandkids coming up, so this interests me quite a bit. So Ms. Tetrick, ladies and gentlemen of the board, I want to say that I do not blame Richwood for wanting to keep their high school. I don't blame them a bit. I would want to do the same thing. We wanted to keep Muddleby grade school, where I'm from. That didn't work out for us.
Economics took that a different direction. They closed that school. We thought it was awful. Within a year or two, it was just history, and we moved on, and everything was okay. It all worked out. It wasn't that big a deal. So, I'm not here to throw bombs back and forth across the Gauley River. I have a lot of friends over there. I'm not here to make anyone uncomfortable, but this is an uncomfortable situation. I'm just here to represent the facts. The facts are that the people on this school board, and I know a lot of them personally. I mean, you were teaching school when I was in this old building right here. I've known you for years. I've known you to be a great, honest, and just a very good man. I've seen Fred come in, and if I'm not mistaken, you're from Richwood.
Legacy.
Okay, Legacy. Okay, but I've seen you come in and coach, and you were at Nicholas County for a little bit as a principal, right, at the middle school? I mean, you held yourself well. You had such respect. I don't know Donna that well. I think Donna came in right in the middle of a very bad situation. Gus Penix, right over here in this building, I can tell you folks, if you guys are listening to all this hysterical hyperbole about these people being some kind of evil people that are out to get Richwood, you're wrong. Gus Penix is a great man. He always has been. Lady right there is my sister, Libby Kaufman. She ended up here. She probably would have ran if she had known that it was going to turn into this. But the reason I suggested to her and conned her into coming down here was I know that she has the fortitude to do what it takes. She's been flooded out herself. She lives in Birch River. She went through all that stuff. I grew up with this lady. We grew up on a farm. The lady ran the tractor. She baled the hay. She did everything it took. There were 8 of us kids. So I know what she's made out of. AJ, if I'm not mistaken, you're a Richwood citizen, or were?
My kids both graduated from Richwood.
Right, so
my son coached there, I coached there.
You guys have really, I mean, it's a very diverse part of the county that's represented here. So, having said that, I want to follow up here. So I'm just here to represent the facts, and the facts are that the people in this school board are honest, upstanding folks with great backgrounds, principles, and values, doing an extremely tough job. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Tetrick, took this job right before the floods hit. Is that correct? Yeah, so you walked into a buzzsaw, right? If I'm not mistaken, Ms. Tetrick, give me a second there to catch my place. Some would have just said, it's not my problem. If they weren't from here and they walked into that situation, and probably threw their hands in the air and ran. Thank you for staying here. But she didn't. She didn't. With the flood majorly impacting most of your jurisdiction and inflicting devastation on 3 of your top 4 schools just weeks before fall classes were to start, you put a plan together to get these kids back in school and executed it brilliantly. So this is how you started to earn my trust. I didn't know you. I don't know you that well now. I know these others. But from what I've seen and what you've been able to put together to get those kids back in school and not missing classes and get the pods in and get all that stuff up and running, it has been amazing. Thank you. Then your job has turned to making the most of the situation for the planning of the academic success of all Nicholas County students for generations to come. That's what we can't miss here. These decisions are being made for the generations to come. It has been rough, but you haven't ran yet. Please hang in there. Ms. Tetrick, I want to say that I am in awe at the outstanding leadership you and your team have shown in working through this devastating situation and negotiating with FEMA to secure the funds to put Nicholas County on the path of scholastic excellence for decades to come. You have done this in the face of extreme opposition from many different factions. Not the least is Richwood. For the overwhelming majority of these residents, it is a very real and heartfelt struggle. That has to make your job even tougher. I reject the notion that you and your team are out to stick it to Richwood. That is simply hysterical hyperbole, like I said earlier. I am here to show my support for your plan, whatever the details are. It's going to be okay. We will heal as a county. Can you put up on the screen what I needed there? So there have been several hundred times in the history of West Virginia that change has forced itself on our schools. Most often, schools are simply closed and forced to consolidate. Sometimes, as in the case of Richwood, a community with a valiant fight and a merciful BOE is able to hang on to their school, at least for the foreseeable future. However, most are not. I want to share an extraordinary example with you. Okay.
I paused his time.
What's it?
I paused the
Okay.
time.
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, we're good. I won't keep you too much longer. Okay, this one would probably be okay. I don't need the rest of them. They'll be able to see it. So they're up on the other two? Yep. Okay. So a lot of you folks in this room probably don't even know anything about Norfolk High School, do you? Probably some of the older ones would know. Okay.
Basketball.
Basketball.
Penny's boy.
Right? McDowell County once, McDowell County was once one of the richest counties in all of America,
Absolutely.
right?
It was.
They won the state championships in 71, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, and 84 with the boys, and won them in 76, 77, and 79 with the girls. Just phenomenal. Yet hardly anybody knows who they are now, because they dropped in population in that county from almost 100,000 down to 25,000 since 1950.
And Luke, their school population dropped from about 10,000 children down to about 2.
Right.
It's a severe drop in population.
So even though they were that good, and they got that good because they boomed, coal boomed, people came in from everywhere. They had such a diverse group of students in that county. They were able to put teams together that no one else could compete with. I mean, if you look at that, it's phenomenal. No matter how phenomenal they were, economics still caught up to them and got them. They were forced into a situation where they were going to be merged with or consolidated with Mount View. The people here, as could be expected, as would be expected, took them to court, got lawyers, and fought them all the way to the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court said, your Board of Education knows what's best, we're siding with them. So, given that, we are in a better situation here than they were there. They were in a horrid situation. They were not able to keep their school. That school was turned into the middle school and then later closed down in 2005. So, having said that, the fact that Richwood is retaining the high school is great. I think we're not in this position. And I feel like if I were someone from outside and I was coming into this town or into this county and somebody said, here is a pot of money, go invest it for the future generations of this county, I would look for great infrastructure, easy access from one of the busiest highways that West Virginia has. I would look for somewhere near the center of the county, and the fact that you guys have chose Glade Creek to be the flagship school for this county, I think is going to work out well into the future for everybody in this county. And I know I've heard a lot in the past about, oh, we don't want our kids to have to ride the bus that far. So riding the bus from Richwood to Glade Creek couldn't be any more than 30 minutes. When I was in school, I rode from Nicholas County High School to the bottom of this hill, got on a bus, rode back up all the way up Glade Creek to Persinger, let kids off all the way, back down 55, back up to Mudley Valley, to the end of Mudley Valley, back across the Birch River, dropped off kids, come back across 19, or Powell Mountain, and was let out at the mouth of Spruce Run Road so they could let us off on the safe side of the bus. Now, I was on the road an extra hour, which put me on the road about 90 minutes. I then had to walk a mile from there to the house. So when I hear people talk about having to ride a bus for a half hour, I can tell you that those were some of the funnest times of my life. Okay? So it'll be okay. It's going to be okay. We're going to heal as a county. It's going to come together. Trust these people. If you've watched what they've done over the past 4 years, the fact that they came in and got our kids up and running and got the schools moving, you need to trust them. They're good people. And I yield back whatever time I have.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart.
Dr. Pennick, I have one comment to make. I guess I'm allowed to do that, right? I can remember telling Donna, Dr. Teetrich, I may even said in these words, you're crazy if you think we're going to start school on time after that flood. And by golly, she did it. That was nothing short of a miracle that we got those kids, and you alluded to that, and that's why I'm commenting on it. I remember that, and I'm a person that gets things done myself, or late, and I didn't think it was possible. I know Kanawha County didn't do it. They didn't start till several months later, and it was just phenomenal. We lost more, and we started on time, and that's nothing short of a miracle, and it's all because of her.
I'd like to add to that. As a principal, when you come up to the board to get different things, a lot of times you'll hear some of the employees up here growling, the boss wants us to do this or that. What I've noticed with this superintendent, she's pulled everybody together with less. Now, I'm not saying I'm sure sometimes they may have questioned her, but overall, she's pulled everybody, she's made cuts, We told her, try to cut so we can keep the elementary classrooms, one teacher per grade, but that's getting harder and harder to do with the numbers keep dropping. But it's a team up here. It truly is. We've all observed that. That's all I have.
Mr. Berry, you wanted to say something?
Well, there was a little bit of information there earlier on that I don't accept, that there's an east side of the county and a west side of the county. And Luke alluded to this. We chose Glade Creek because it was the center of the county for all students, so that all might have equal opportunities. And that's in our heart, our plan. And I can tell you, Donna and myself have ancestors from Richwood who first settled there. It's not because of any animosity to anybody. It's because we want to do the best for the students, and we're not divided. That's it.
A couple of facts I'll point out. The flood occurred June 23rd, 2016. We opened school with students on August the 19th, less than 2 months. The work that was completed was just, as AJ said, phenomenal in that 7-week period of time to get our students in emergency facilities. And let's not forget, Summersville Middle School, for 1 year, went up in the arena up here with curtains dividing the classrooms. And so we said we've got to get kids in school, we've got to educate them to the best of our ability, given the situation we have. So I think that's it's extremely important to that. And
I think a lot of people have forgotten that. Summersville Middle School has gone over 600 students, but at the time, probably around 515, don't quote me on that, but just giving a number. And those teachers in that school, phenomenal, divided by curtains, and out in that convention center, and just went on and never complained. I never heard one complaint from any of those people from Summersville Middle. They were just glad to be in school, and it's just amazing that they did that.
I'd like to point out that Birch River was devastated when that flood hit in 2016 as well.
We were.
I mean, I had pictures of how high the water was on the Go-Mart over there.
It was over the top of the cars sitting on the Go-Mart lot.
Yeah. So there are other areas that were affected by the flood. But I'd like to also point out one other fact that the original board that dealt with flood matters in 2016, Libby wasn't with us, but Darrell White was there. And of the board members sitting on this board, 3 of you had children who graduated. Darrell, AJ, and Fred, all 3 of you we had kids that graduated from Richwood High School. Mr. Amick, you and Mr. Berry both graduated from Richwood High School. And what did you do in Richwood?
I helped my son coach 1 year.
So it wasn't, any decisions weren't based upon, hurting anybody. They were based, again, on what I said in the presentation. We looked at what was in the best interest of the children of this county. And number 1, and number 2, what's in the best interest of the taxpayers. So.
And I'd like to add one thing. One of the hardest things that an individual can ever do is look at one half of your family who lives in Richwood and tell them that the most economical plan as a CEO of the school system is to make this proposal. A lot of tears shed, a lot of hurt, and it was not easy.
Okay, continuing on with delegations, next is Heather Tuttle.
While she's coming, I would just like to say to my brother, I didn't have to ride the bus that long. If I did, I would have walked the 10 miles it took us to get here.
Sorry, I didn't get that passed out. That's okay.
Good evening. My name Good evening, Madam Superintendent, Dr. Penix, members of the Nicholas County Board of Education. My name is Heather Glasgow Tully. I reside at 1829 Webster Road, Summersville, West Virginia. I'm a Nicholas County resident, taxpayer, advanced practice registered nurse, and a Nana times 5, three of my grandchildren attend Nicholas County schools and 2 will when they are of age. I'd like to say that I'm here in support of the mediated agreement. The details of the final location of the schools per that agreement were left up to the Nicholas County Board of Education. We've heard much about the Collins site. Back in the summer of 2017, prior to some of the mediation, prior to some of the litigation, the superintendent was directed to form a stakeholders committee to look at alternative solutions. The members of the Richwood delegation withdrew from that process on the advice of their legal counsel. Had they had a viable plan for the Collins site, it should have been brought forth at that time. The mediation litigation that ensued has only cost our students time in their schools that they could be in, and it's cost our taxpayers valuable money. We also hear much about the shack, quote unquote, that ZMM is going to be building in Richwood, which I think that is a complete misnomer. I'm a product of St. Albans High School. It was about 40 years old when ZMM renovated it. If you look at the high school now in St. Albans compared to what it looked like when I went to school, it is an absolute showplace. They are professionals. They will do an excellent job with the renovation of that school. This issue has been mediated, litigated, and deliberated to death. It is time for our students to move forward. I brought up some tax and population data that I have compiled and passed out. And actually, Ms. Cutler, this might be of some interest to you because it does show the trending of the high school enrollments as well. But actually, if you look, and I don't know how well you can see it, this starts at 1960 and runs like every 10 years, like through 2017. This is the population of Richwood. You can see where it declines. You can see the rise in the population in Summersville. You can see the overall population of the county. You can see like where really the enrollments of the high schools have stayed relatively stable. But then here's where your big issue comes in. This is where the tax base and the tax collections of Richwood have stayed relatively flat, and you can see the astronomical rise of the tax collections in Summersville. This data tells why the large school should be built where it is being built. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Keller.
And I would like to use the additional time tonight.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought your wife had told you could go speak. I don't want to step in between you.
When I married her, I knew she was Mrs. Wright, I just didn't know her first name was Always.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I rest my case.
She talked really quick.
We're go. Okay, Mr. Toller, would you please state your name and your address?
Good evening, Superintendent Teacher, Dr. Penix, and all board members. I'm Lawrence Tully from 1829 Webster Road in Summersville. I have 2 grown children raising 5 grandchildren that will all be going to Nicholas County schools. 3 are currently enrolled, and another one will attend in the fall of this year. 2 more years, our last grandchild will be in school. While I still believe the college consolidation plan would have been the best route for the long term, I fully support and accept the mediated settlement and plan for schools as presented and approved by all the various groups. The last 4 years have been difficult for all parties and for all citizens on each side of the county. Earlier this evening, the first speaker, you saw an emotional response. And it's difficult to deal with those changes. In all my years on earth, I've never been guided by my emotions when I'm dealing with other people. You have to go by what I said when I first spoke to this board. Based on the developed facts, it took a while for all the facts to develop here. My attendance at this and other meetings is to support good education for all children, no matter where they live, period. Your job is to educate. But unfortunately, we've been mediating and litigating and everything because of a lot of people who just haven't got over high school.
Amen.
We've seen clear differences from the beginning. These differences are most likely, as we've experienced tonight, will not change for a while. Hopefully we'll all adjust, just like every county around us adjusted. We must remember, schools do not belong to the individual communities to where they are located.
Amen.
They belong to the county school system.
That's correct.
Over the last 4 years, we've seen a questionable system of justice. Some names and good reputations have been protected, while others, like yourselves, have been soiled and tarnished through written and verbal assaults by tabloid journalism and self-serving charlatans that fail to deal with the facts. You don't fact check on social media. You don't fact check by some of these outlandish statements that we hear. Richwood has a lot of problems. I didn't cause them. I don't know what happened. It's still under investigation. There's a lot of people there believe what they've been told. I have firsthand knowledge after the flood of the seriousness of the problems they have. I stand for good schools today, tomorrow, and for every day for the balance of my life. Because I don't know if I'll get to see that last one graduate. We support you and the stand you've taken because it's been for all children. And this is one person who is seriously tired of hearing, she did this and she did that. This is a board that you stand individually and you've made good decisions. And I thank you for good government.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. At this moment, we're going to take about a 10-minute recess.
Well, before you do, I would like for the superintendent to make everyone aware, our test scores, the statement was made, you know, we have low test scores. Well, how are our schools getting recognized? Would you go ahead and tell them about Panther Creek?
Well, last year, we received a national Blue Ribbon School, which is the top honor in the United States. 3 schools, elementary schools selected in the state of West Virginia out of hundreds here, and Mount Lookout was a recipient of that award. And so for our teachers in the audience, and especially the House of Delegates who's running for the House of Delegates in the back, she certainly would understand the prestige behind a National Blue Ribbon School. And this year, we've also gotten notice again to 2 consecutive years that Panther Creek has been nominated this year as a National Blue Ribbon School. So, and they're making applications, so there's 2. So, yeah, so anyway, that was some more false information.
Now maybe we have a recess.
Go ahead.
We stand in recess for 10 minutes. We'll take back up at 6:30. Okay,
Okay,
we're out of recess at the 6:39 p.m. Let the record reflect that. We're moving on to item 4 on this evening's agenda, and it's to ratify the superintendent's decision for student number 201-962-0027 from Nicholas County High School, and student number 201-962-028 from Nicholas County High School, and student number 201-962-029 from Summersville Middle School. She met with parents and worked out the disciplinary situations with those people, and she's asking us to ratify those 3 situations this evening. So that's item A. Do you have any questions for the superintendent in regard to those disciplinary actions?
I appreciate you doing that, and not having to have those disciplinary meetings. Thank you.
Yes.
And the parents had the opportunity to do an appeal within 3 days, and none of them requested it.
That saves the county a lot of money.
It does.
Excuse me just a second, I forgot something here. Next item on this evening's agenda is to exercise the land option agreement for the Glade Creek property. And Madam Superintendent, we need an executive session for that to discuss it.
You know, I mean,
We need to meet
depends.
with the architect. or-
If there's, yeah, we do need to meet with the architect.
Okay,
So,
we'll probably need an executive session. It's going to discuss the final financing. Or we can just go ahead and go with the open, just an open meeting. Let's just do that. So we won't go into executive session then for that.
I can present, and then if you have the questions, we can have him come forward. Is that
That's fine.
okay?
Board members, I think you received something here earlier this evening at your seat in regard to the purchase of the property.
As the board's well aware, you gave me you signed an option agreement for the purchase of Glade Creek property, 71 acres per requirement, acreage requirement of policy, West Virginia Board of Education Policy 6200. And the total dollar amount for that purchase is $2,485,000, which is the appraised value of the property. So earlier tonight you heard paying penalties. I'm not aware of penalties at the Glade Creek that may have to pay. Have no worries or concerns about anything that the building commission has to do for the property. All that I'm asking for is to pay what the appraised value of the property is, and it's something that FEMA did consider as reasonable in the feasibility study that was provided. And 71 acres is supported by, again, West Virginia Board of Education Policy 6200 for the facility. It was also mentioned earlier about us paying, it said $6,000 a month in interest. We have not. We've been paying $5,900 a month, but that is also something else that we will be requesting for reimbursement from FEMA for those fees. And the reason that we had to pay the interest is because there was a land option agreement we had, and it was to keep the property from being sold in parcels, because there was other people, as we were told, was interested in buying different parcels of that property. Any additional land at this time I'm not requesting to be purchased. The Board of Education, upon purchase of the 71 acres, would have basically control of the residue of the remaining acreage, and this also includes the secondary entrance on the property, as required by the traffic study report. The steps, if this board agrees to exercise this agreement tonight, tomorrow the option notice would be submitted to the building commission, and there is a 30-day closure clause. So that means that in 30 days from tomorrow, this property should be closed, and we would have title in hand.
The option, this is the exact option that we agreed upon originally, then we renewed it twice now with the building commission. Is that correct?
It is the exact option, and we asked for an extension in December because we feared that we would not meet the time frame. And as you know, everything was completed in January, so it was an extension of the exact option agreement. Yes.
And 30 days, they have 30 days to present documentation along with their final approval for us to make the purchase.
Well, what they will present to us is the title. They'll be responsible for developing putting together the title. The title is based on the language in this notice of option agreement. And there's also a survey plat you can see on the back. That's not an officially stamped one, but of course we'll have an officially stamped survey title to go with this. It has the meets and bounds and the plat to the property. And again, this acreage is needed and supported by Policy 6200, and because of Policy 6200 requiring the acreage, FEMA will be paying, that's supported by payment from FEMA, and no money from the citizens of this county to pay for it.
So my question on the process, the board, it's under action item that we exercise this land option agreement for the Glade Creek property. Once, I'm assuming, again, I don't know how I'm voting, but I'm assuming the board will approve this. The next step would be to do a project worksheet, or?
And those are actually completed. We're ready. And if this board
I'd like to
votes
get
to
that
approve-
deed as quick as possible as we move forward. I see Ferg back here grinning. I know he would like to see that.
It's possible that it could be completed prior to the 30 days, but we already have, Kevin already has the project worksheet. It's completed, ready to go. In the mail, it will be sent to, as he said earlier, to the School Building Authority. School Building Authority will review and submit to Homeland Security. Homeland Security will review, and then they will provide the funding. So it's a reimbursement process, and
that funding, once it goes through those steps, Kevin, maybe you can answer this, it would come back to us, deposited in the board account, and we write the check to the building commission. Is that the way it would work?
That's correct.
And they're responsible for getting the deed for the land to us, and we'd record the deed then. But we can we have the groundbreaking before all this is done, or do we need to wait until?
I believe we need to wait until we actually purchase the property.
Okay.
I mean, that's just my feeling. Yeah, we're exercising the option agreement, but having it prior to,
I understand.
yeah.
So we're looking at 30 days from tomorrow would be March the 18th. After that, sometime we'd be planning on groundbreaking at both sides.
Yes, I would hope to definitely do it within 6 weeks. And that's something that if you would like to talk to the architect, there's also, as far as, maybe, Mr. Ferguson, would you care to come up? Because he is actually prepared to start with, there's got to be a lot of earthwork done to both locations, of at least varying degrees. So he can speak to that and his preparedness to move forward with the earthwork.
Sure. We are preparing to get two beginning site packages ready for both sites. For the Glade Creek site, we would do an erosion sediment control plan and possibly a rough grading package within the next several weeks. And then on the Cherry River site, we looked at doing the same thing with the erosion sediment control along the river. And then there's a drainage, they call it a stream, out in front of the school and behind the school. We need to start working on that because it's causing some current issues with the facility, and that needs to be repiped and redesigned to allow for all that runoff currently coming to the building. So we need to get started on that as soon as we can.
Mr. Ferguson, just kind of, I know you have a plan in place, but I'm sure it's a concern to people. How would the construction flow over on the Cherry River property with students in part of the building and that type of thing? That's been a question, I'm sure.
Okay. Our current plan, we've always talked with the construction manager and the staff here. What our original plan is to use a phased construction plan. Since the students are on site, and this happens a lot in West Virginia because we don't have the luxury of having buildings for kids to go to a lot. So we have to build on, and sites are few and far between in the state that are adequate. So we have to build on the same site in several locations that we've had. So on the Cherry River site, we're going to have a phased construction. We'll build a new section, And then as we get to the point where we have to take the modulars off, then the students will go to the new part of the school, we'll move the modulars off, then build the remainder of the facility. Then we'll renovate the existing school to bring it up to the same standard as the new facility. That's a bird's eye view of what we're going to do, but it'll have a more detailed plan in the next few weeks.
And Ferg, I think it would be, I mean, I just don't think we could say there won't be any school interruptions when this gets started. There'll be times you'll have to have the power off and maybe the water off and things like that. And I think that's something that you and I talked a little bit. We're going to have to sit down and make a plan, maybe a plan for those students, just almost like a snow pocket day, that where we may not be able to have school for that day, just in case we'd have to have the water off or the power off.
Well, see, I hope it doesn't come to that.
Okay.
Generally, what we like to do is plan those type big interruptions over holidays, like over Thanksgiving, over Christmas, over Easter, or over the summer, where they could have to shut things down for a period of time. Now, if something does happen that we can't avoid, yeah, of course we'd like to work, and we'll work with all the principals and the staff there at the school, the contractors will, and the construction managers. We're going to make a point to make sure we work with the staff, and we always have the student safety in mind, and we have to meet fire marshal regulations during construction, since there's students there, so all the safety measures have to be taken. So there's not anything that's going to be unsafe.
That should be reassuring to the people in Richwood that, I mean, you take all those safety precautions, making sure that the kids are totally safe at all times while construction is occurring on that property. So I appreciate your saying that. So,
What if you had a big generator, if you were going to have outages where you could just automatically?
Well, we'll probably, we could leave that up to the contractor. It's going to be an issue for the contractor whether he wants to schedule his work with the holidays or with the summer times on long delays, or it might be beneficial for him to provide a generator to do that so he could continue work at a normal phase or a normal schedule. But a lot of times we'll leave that up to him because that's an expense that you don't want to take on if you don't have to.
It's not Fayette County, or did they not just come through a project
Yes.
kind of similar where they were doing construction on the school?
We've done 3 projects in Fayette that actually building onto a school with kids, Oak Hill High School, and that was the main entrance.
Yeah.
So
So it's not uncommon?
It's not uncommon at all. And we've built brand new schools 10 feet away from existing schools. So it's not uncommon to actually do
that. Donna, you said the 71 acres.
Yes.
How many acres is up there?
I think it's 168, I think, I mean, without looking. It's something like that. 71 acres, we'll have about 80 acres with disturbance totally. And then at the end of May 15th of 2026, their penalties from the EDA will be lifted. And at that time, the school board, it's in the agreement that the property will be turned over to the school board, the remaining property. So,
Really?
yes, so at this point, I don't see any need in purchasing the residue. Now, as we proceed, if it becomes an issue, it may be something that I will reapproach the board with reasons of why I think we should, but at this time, I don't think that that's necessary.
But most of that 71 acres is the cleared area,
Yes, it is.
and the other optional is the mountain behind it.
That's correct. And what the agreement says is we're not allowed to build any structures on the residue, which we wouldn't be building any buildings on the property on the hill. But it's primarily the cleared site. You can look in the back with the map.
And Donna, before we approve this, I think you need to make clear what you just said, because I can remember during our environmental assessment battle that the person in Washington that was in charge of that said that she read in the media that we're going to buy more than 71 acres, and that actually delayed our EA for a while, because she read somewhere that we said we were going to buy more acreage than what we had the EA study done on. So I think we need to make that clear. I don't know what media she read or where she heard it, but it, as you all remember from our phone calls, it delayed us a month, probably maybe more, because she wanted to go back where she read something, that we were going to buy more land than what we had actually had the EA. You all recall that, right?
Yes.
And Gus, you recall
I
that?
certainly did.
And we have the areas of disturbance identified, and the EA was conducted on that. If we, in the building plans, if it's determined that we have to go outside of that EA that's been studied, then we have to make notification, and they will come in and continue additional studies if we need them. But at this point, we don't think that we need them. But as we progress, you know, that would be the only way. But at this point, no. It's all I'm asking is to purchase the appraised value. We're not paying penalties. We don't, all of these rumors, because the fact checking, someone stated earlier, looking at social media for fact checking, so people form opinions on flawed information. And they rarely stay here for the conclusion of a board meeting to actually hear what is being discussed. So again, we're not paying penalties, we're paying the appraised value of the property is all I'm requesting, and to meet policy 6200 requirements for the land.
I think it's important to just remind everyone that that property up there has all the infrastructure in place. I mean,
Yes, it does.
it has the power, it has the septic, it has the city water, and that's very important, which, you know, we're going to run into a few problems up on the Cherry River site as far as the water pressure and things like that, because of the infrastructure up there just isn't where it should be.
Yes, we are going to have speaking of the Cherry River site, we're going to have to have an additional tank for pressure to sprinkle the schools. Well, I'll just state this one more time. I know I've stated it over and over and over again, but I'm going to state it another time. The reason the pods were not put together in Craigsville or in Richwood is because they did not have the water pressure to have those buildings connected. The buildings, in order to be connected, you must have water pressure to sprinkle the facility. The fire marshal would not approve those ponds being put together like Summersville Middle Schools. Summersville Middle School had the water pressure for sprinklers. Those facilities do not. Those are commercial facilities, and they must be sprinkled. The fire marshal had to meet with us. They had to go through the entire thing. No matter what social media says, no matter the rumors, what he said, she said, they clearly did not. We had tests done, and they did not have the pressure to sprinkle. So that's why those were not connected. And that's why in the construction of this new school in Richwood, we must have a tank set up so that we can have the pressure.
And Perk's done that before. He has one at Gauley River. He had one at Hacker Valley.
It'll be a typical setup to the school in Craigsville. You have a 30,000 gallon tank and a pump set up to take care of that.
My question back on the Glade Creek site, and this may be something for future planning, for the secondary road that was required by FEMA on the traffic study. I know they have a secondary entrance over at Midland Trail High School when that was built several years ago, but they have it gated off. They never use it.
Right.
Will this be similar? Will it be used, or is it going to be just there for necessity in case of emergency or whatever? Is that going to be
I think the intent right now is to try to utilize that.
like a loop to come in and one way and out the other?
Correct. I think it'll make it a lot easier, traffic flow a little bit faster at certain periods of the day. And then the state road is, the State Department of Highways said they would take care of that third lane as well.
Which is a huge savings to this board.
Yeah.
So we do not have to construct a turning lane.
Well,
The
I've heard
state
that,
will be doing
or I've
that.
been told that they're planning or thinking about putting a third lane all the way from 19 up there.
That's what we were told as well.
And so the state is going to do that part of it.
Yes, and that's going to be a huge savings to this Board of Education with them adding the third lane. And also, since we're speaking and comparing about the two, and I hate to even mention the other site because I'm asking for money for this, but there's also been question about the Watergate Inn property where teachers park and people park. I want to make this clear to everybody, anybody that's watching this, The school is not being constructed on the Watergate lot. Never has been discussed even. There's pictures and things that floated around saying, how are you going to put it there? And people to this day are convinced it's going on the Watergate lot. Is not. The only thing Watergate lot would be used for, and it's not in the floodway, it's a floodplain area, is for parking. And at this point, we are not in any type of urgency to purchase that property. There's liens on the property, and we've looked at that process. I'm working with Bowles Rice in the proper way to secure the property, and I've been advised by the attorney that that I will proceed as I'm directed by that attorney in giving you information to secure the property. So the urgency is not there at this time, but as the attorney gives us advice on when to move forward and the best route to take, I'll be advising the board. So I would say within the next few weeks, I will come in with some type of recommendation to you. And you may be able to better speak to that. Is that your understanding?
That's perfect.
Dave,
Yes, sir.
parking's always a problem. And whether it's at Ridgewood or down at Glade Creek, how big an area at Glade Creek will it be for parking? Is that in acreage or?
We don't have that figured out yet, only because we're still trying to figure out the footprint of that building.
Yeah.
And once we get the footprint laid out, we can start laying out the parking, and we can determine that a little bit better.
To fit the building?
It'll fit the building. At a bare minimum, it has to meet 6200 policy, state requirement.
Of course, it won't be on all in one area.
No, it'll be scattered around the site.
Yeah.
And then the Cherry River site, I want to say it's a little over 180 spaces. I can't recall exactly. I should have known that by now. But since that project's a little further along with the floor plan, that's already been determined. But we exceed the state policy by quite a few.
And not only the parking do we exceed the state policy for the Ridgewood area school, we also exceed the state policy on the building of Ridgewood High School, Ridgewood Middle School, and the revamping or remodeling of Cherry River Elementary. We are exceeding the state's requirements. So again, I want to state for people who are watching this, please stop listening to social media. We are exceeding state requirements. So the state requirements are developed to provide the minimum for the building of new schools. We are absolutely exceeding those requirements for Ridgewood area schools.
And that goes back to another thing that Bert says, how far along we are with schematic designs and those types of things. And Donna, you were almost called a liar tonight when you were asked about how much you're going to spend on each side of the county. Nothing's been sent to it, even to an estimator to estimate anything because the plans aren't finished. Am I correct? And that's the first thing we do before we put anything out to bid, right? You have to find out. So none of that's been done, and nobody's lying about what's going to be spent where. We just don't know at this point. And I think I saw some laughs and snickers when Donna said, "Oh, we don't know yet." And it gets to you every once in a while. You're going to be called a liar so many times.
Well, we can't get an estimate, and this comes back to us. We can't get an estimate until we finish a floor plan. And at this stage, it's called schematic design. So we have a floor plan, elevations on what this building should look like, and we have an idea, pretty good idea on the Cherry River School area, but we do not have an idea yet on the Glade Creek School. So we're trying to get those done as quick as we can, and and I don't mean to sound like we're dragging our feet, but over the last 3 years we've had a process to go through, and FEMA has pretty much required this has to be done first, this has to be done second, third, fourth, and so on. And if you get ahead of yourself, they said you run the risk of losing your money or having your money taken back or being responsible for something that you've done that you shouldn't have done. So we've been very cautious about doing everything in the order that they've asked us to do it and getting that approval before going to the next phase. And I hate that it's a slow process, but it's the process that you want to keep yourself in good graces with those folks since they're handing out the money.
And let me give you a really good example with what he just said, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Kanawha County Schools went ahead and paid against FEMA's advisement to have their schools designed. I did not want to take that chance and have millions of dollars that we may not be reimbursed for. I've been extremely careful and trying to be a good steward of the county's money. So I did not take that step. We followed to a T everything FEMA asked us to do. And so, accurate?
Very accurate.
So just letting you know that the school design, we were not allowed to start it. So I know the statement was made earlier, what have you done for 4 years? Well, we followed the rules. We did exactly what we were supposed to do. And as it's been stated before, the superintendent dots her i's and crosses her t's, and will continue to do so.
Well, and also part of that 4-year holdup, we were involved in lawsuits that we should not have occurred, and other things that have held us up. You know, we've done our best. We've moved along as quickly as possible for the 4 years, and we're really fortunate we are where we are. So,
but we were not allowed to proceed with the designing process early unless we paid and took the chance, and I just wasn't willing to do that.
But now we're your number one priority, right, Bert?
We're moving pretty quick. Trying to make up for lost time.
Also, Dave, if you could just speak to the fact that, you know, everyone thinks, oh, they got the money, they can start tomorrow. No, you can't. Can you speak to that process, the bidding process, the
Sure.
notice to proceed and all that?
We'll have, like I said, right now we're in what's called schematic design. We're trying to figure out the floor plans, the program, and how the building's going to work. And then we have to submit that to the School Building Authority. They're still approving this process as we go. And we submit that with a budget, with the program, and all the required documents to those folks. And then we will also be submitting to them a drawdown schedule for the next year on how much we think that will be asked of FEMA to draw down each month. And we'll work with the construction manager on that. But after the schematic design is approved, we're going to go ahead and jump into design development. And what that is, a more enhanced floor plan, we figure out where all the outlets go, where the windows are, the doors, and all those kinds of things. And a more refined building plan with elevations and an HVAC document. And by that time, we'll know electrical and all the plumbing and all that sort of thing. And then we go from there to construction documents, which are the actual bidding documents for the contractors to bid. Once those are completed and approved by the School Building Authority again, we can go to bid, and the construction manager will put this out to bid. We've talked about different ways of bidding right now. They want to wait till the drawings are done before they actually conclude how we're going to bid these contractors. But the bidding process will take about a month to accomplish that, and then the first one that we get complete, we'll put out the bid, and then we'll next work they'll both be worked on at the same time in our office. But the smaller project, which is the Cherry River School, would probably go out first. And I'm guessing right now, because I don't know what stage they're going to be on. But we'll bid them as quick as we can and get to the contractors, and then they'll give us the time limit on construction, and we'll go from there.
Did that bidding or the paying process or the process where we pay our bills, we talked about that being 60 days. Did they eliminate part of that?
Kevin, I think they've changed it to, it's been all over the place.
They think they can move it through
Yeah,
quicker.
that's a maximum of
60.
60.
Yeah.
It still could be.
Maximum.
But the state got off of FEMA probation, didn't they, so to speak? But I mean, that's the
Manual drawdown.
manual drawdown or whatever. They actually have fixed that, right?
That wasn't just only FEMA, that was federal money.
Correct.
Mhm.
That's all the
broad spectrum
approvals.
of federal money.
Right.
And it was 60 days to start with, but that was because it was a new procedure that they had in place. And I think it's since, because I'm in the process of working with that kind of stuff, and it's not taken the full 60 days.
We think it'll be faster, but Let's just wait and see.
Yeah, that could possibly hold up construction if it's stretched out, between.
Well, that was our concern in the
Contract.
beginning. If that process is stretched out too long, contractors will be a little shy on bidding that, because we have to put that in the specs on how things are going to happen, because they don't want to be funding your project.
Right.
So, and FEMA understood that. We had long, lengthy discussions with everybody, Homeland Security and everyone, because it does actually become a problem during construction.
We were worried it would limit the number of bidders, actually, because it would take a pretty big company to be able to carry 2 months of expenses before they were paid.
So you'll probably get some large contractors coming in and wanting to do this work.
You know, I've been told that this is the largest project that they ever know of in the state's history with rebuilding so many schools at the same time. So it's going to be an exhausting process. It's exhausting now. So it has been.
Yeah. Dave, is there any way that you could, I like to see things in black and white. Now, tonight, we're going to go with the land. And is there mandated laws you have to wait so many weeks for each step, or can we kind of get her done?
Well, we're going to move as fast as we can. There's no really law. There's an estimated time frame on all of these things, and the construction manager and I are going to put together an overall schedule of when we think we can get all of these steps completed.
And you'll have that.
And you'll have that.
That's what
We'll give that to everybody, and that'll be public knowledge at some point, because we have to give ourselves deadlines and goals to hit. And we're going to try to get you in or out to bid as quick as we can. But there's still a lot of decisions that have to be made as far as the building. We have to meet with the staff and teachers and all these folks to try to get all those things accomplished.
Well, with these contractors, let's just say that John Doe gets the nod. And he says within X number of months, he can have that particular project taken care of. Notice I said months, not years. Can we incorporate a penalty in there?
There is penalties incorporated in every specification for that, for delay claims. And that's why we're very cautious during construction with our construction managers and with our construction administrators that go on site and review it. If the contractor is late, he can be assessed what's called liquidated damages. And those are assessed based on the project size and cost. Those can be anywhere from $1,000 a day to $3,000 a day if he's delaying the project. If he's found to delay the project just because he can't man the project or because he can't get his work completed. Now, there's so many days built into the schedule for rain and bad weather, but he has to make up those days. So there's a process in the scheduling portion of the specification on how the contractors should deal with that.
Well, business is business. Let's make it 3.
And Dave, once those contractors are hired, there's contingencies built into those contracts for, I hate to, it's almost a dirty word, for change orders, for things that come up, there's things that always come up.
There's things that always come up, unforeseen conditions, especially once, I tell people, generally, I worry a lot until I come out of the ground. Once I come out of the ground, I don't worry so much because I can see everything. I don't know what's under the ground, so I don't know what we're digging around. But there's all, in each budget, there's a contingency number. And that contingency number could be something you want to move a door, or something else happens on site we need $1,000 for, or whatever they need to do. And sometimes they're good because they're credit. They can be credits. So there's a process for change orders and what their reasoning is. But we also have to justify the change orders with Homeland Security and the school building authority. So all those folks still play a part in what we're doing. Does that help?
Yeah.
So we are now in the phase of schematic design development right now.
Correct.
Both sites, and then of course after that we will get the cost estimates done, and before we go present any plans out there, because we want to make sure that we can pay for what we're building.
Correct. We don't want to go over budget.
We want to make sure of that,
And we need to make sure it fits the size of our population.
Yes, the student population, and it has to account for the kids that will be actually attending the Career Center from Richwood High School and that type of thing. We have to look at those types of things yet. So, I think we get kind of outlined it. You saw it on the screen when I was outlining it there. So we just hope we can move on.
I wanted to add one thing. You talked about the CTE, and I was asked this question earlier today, and I just wanted to make it clear that the Richwood students will have available CTE, either transport to the new career site, or as the mediated agreement said, we work in the community of Richwood with coding or the Forest Service or things in that area that they can get CTE there, right?
One of the challenges I have when I met with the city of Richwood and I met with the top business owners or the main business owners there, I did not get buy-in from those individuals.
They did during the mediation. That was
well. They still didn't. But what we can do is I plan to have school-based opportunities for them, because I could not get, the only person that would come forward and commit to assisting was Doug Adkins in automotive technician. The others would not commit. So we can send students to that location. We can have careers in education. We can have Project Lead the Way. We can have advanced careers, different programs that can be contained within the school. We can have that based on student interest and and the demand. So
that helps me answer that question, because
yes.
I know I'm going to be asked that time and time again.
If we could get more buy-in, because when I met with the community, one of the things, as you know, I feel very passionate about this approach that I'm trying to take with the Glade Creek schools in having academies and making all learning relevant to student interest. And I think that design is going to really launch us forward in test scores and certifications and college going rates. But in the Richwood community that I tried to present another similar model, I was told that they were not interested, that they only wanted their traditional schools. But then I've got other groups that come in and say, they don't speak for me. So, I'm challenged, doing the best I can do, and so presenting to you a traditional community school for Richwood area, and then if the other businesses would like to participate, I would love to create programs for students to go out into the communities and get their work experience. Instead of simulated work experience, they would get real life work experience. And those type of opportunities I plan to also incorporate in the Glade Creek side. So if you have a student who earns welding certifications, and we have a welding company out here that needs, students, they could actually go there and, work, at doing welding, doing types of jobs for them. So, definitely will be CTE opportunities for students, whether they stay in that school or whether they go to the one at Glade Creek. I hope that answers.
Well, even though CTE is going to be at Glade Creek, those students from Richwood are still going to have the same opportunity to attend the CTE at the Glade Creek site. Just like now they come from there to Craigsville, except they just have to come down the road, 10 more miles, or it's that far.
Absolutely.
But they will still have that opportunity to go to the CTE at Glade Creek.
Yes.
Thank you.
In regard to the property, are there any further questions for the superintendent in regard to exercising the land option agreement for the Glade Creek property? Thank you, Mr. Ferguson, for sharing with us there this evening. Any further questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve action items A and B as presented this evening?
So moved.
Mr. Amick moves. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Berry seconds. Any further discussion in regard to action items? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, it's unanimous, that passes unanimously. You have,
I do.
We won't let them, so it'll be 3-2.
okay, we have consent items A and B you received electronically, and then also this evening, there was a glitch in the receiving system. You have an additional trip that we will add as number 7 on the agenda this evening, underneath, oh, this is not out of state, is it? This is
It's not out of state, but it is a leased
At least
vehicle.
vehicle, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's hung up in lowland.
Okay, and it's, this is for the,
Richwood High School wrestling team, there's 2 students that qualified to attend.
Richmond High School, is that wrestling?
Yes, sir.
Wrestling.
Is that like the state tournament?
Yes, sir. Oh, yes, ma'am. Sorry. Yes, sir, yes.
If you add that as item 7 on your agenda this evening, we'll go ahead and consider that since it was logged, since it was backed up in the receiving system. Do you,
I'd just like to say, I think that's great that Richwood has 2 wrestlers that's heading to the state tournament.
absolutely, yeah.
And Nicholas County High School had
6.
6.
6?
6.
Wow.
That's great. 8 from
Eight
Nicholas
our-
County.
8 from our
That's
county,
phenomenal.
That's great.
yeah.
That just didn't happen.
Huntington.
Yes,
AJ, is the wrestling, no, it's just football that's going to be the 4 classifications, right? So
Basketball.
Or basketball, I mean.
Yeah.
And then wrestling is just what, the 3 or the
I think 2, isn't it? AAA and then AAA, right, in wrestling, there's only 2.
And there's only 16 in each of those if they go to the state, is that correct, Chris?
It qualifies
It
individuals.
qualifies individuals, okay. Well, this is fantastic, we have 8. Okay, are there any questions regarding consent items? Any further discussion? You had those presented to you electronically. Is there a motion to approve consent items A, B, with the addition of number 7 under B as presented this evening?
So moved.
Mrs. Kaufman moves. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Rogers seconds the motion. Any further discussion in regard to consent items? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, we've got another 5-0 vote. Unanimous. Finance items, Mr. Hess, if you would come to the podium. I would like to note that one of the speakers this evening was concerned about the treasurer's report. We're about to give it, and he got up and left right in the middle of the presentation. So we are, appreciate you being and presenting them to the public.
All right.
I'd like to note that our board meetings are always really long. You never have short board meetings.
Okay, first item on finance agenda is payment of current invoices, if you have any questions there.
I do have a question, but I'll let you all go ahead and discuss. Let me get to it. Okay, payment of current invoices. For some reason, my time's not coming up.
You want to see mine?
I was amazed that we're paying almost $12,000 for coal.
That's
That
crazy.
seems high for, we burn that much coal in Mount Nebo?
Well, I think just the price went up. It used to be, not too long ago, it was like $8,500, and we were doing 2 schools with that.
Yeah.
So, and this is, well, Rocky may know a little bit more, it's a finer size that the auger, it feeds better through the auger than larger chunks that tears up augers.
Is it getting hard to find this since we only have one working coal mine in Nicholas County now?
I was told I would struggle to find multiple estimates, but that's a problem, yes.
Mr. Hess, in the general accounts payable register to Centmark Corporation is at $203,000. Panther Creek project, is that the roofing project?
Yes.
Which is the SBA funded project, correct?
Yes, yeah, that's Panther Creek, Zila, and Nicholas County High School project.
Okay, so we're being reimbursed for that, right?
Yeah, it's in like 80% or 85% of it is SBA funds. Any other questions on payments of current invoices?
Kevin, since we only have, may this be a Rocky question, if we only have one school that's using coal now, what about wood pellets?
Those things are expensive.
You'd probably have to change the boiler out to accommodate pellets, I would imagine.
I don't know if it'd be any cheaper. They're expensive. They're like $6 a bag. Not that I have.
If we just had an engineer here that could tell us that. On hand.
I don't know what the price is.
I think.
So, yeah, coal's traditionally been the cheapest heating source of anything.
Just food for thought.
Is
Yeah,
that,
absolutely.
Rocky, where's the school at that is in?
Coal is burning Mount Nebo.
Mount Nebo?
Yes.
And that's the only one?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? We have a few transfers and supplements. A lot of those are adjustments from the original budget to the final grant award of the state or federal funds. First one, there's some state money, Tools for Schools, $118,704. The next one is the state special ed grant, which is where we were just adjusting from the original to the actual. It went up $16,672. State or federal special ed monies, that was a new supplement of $37,000. The next one is federal special ed funds, and that was an adjustment from the original budget, followed by rural schools. That was almost exactly right. It was a 4-cent adjustment from the original budget. Teacher of the Year Award, $300 supplement. Then we have some Title I adjustments, and that one's rather lengthy, and it was basically taking some of their carryover monies and rebudgeting into line items that they could use. Then Title II, same thing, rebudget into different line items. That one's Title IV, same thing, same deal, $35,772. The next one is rural schools for FY 2019, $16,545. It was transfers to different line items. Then you had a JROTC supplement of $16,121. And then some food service grants for fresh fruits and vegetables, which totaled $45,247. And then finally, a corrective entry of $809,777 was to where we carried forward our contingency amounts. I'd already booked a contingency in our original budget, and so when I rebooked our beginning balances in July, I didn't take that into account, so we had to make this entry to move some monies around within our fund equity accounts. So didn't change the bottom line, it just changed how it's presented on the financial statements. Treasurer's report for January. For the general fund, $54.5 million budget. We've received $18.9 million. We have about $35 million yet to spend, which is, we've committed about almost 35% of our budget. That's not entirely, there's several $1 million worth of adjustments that go into that that are only booked at year end. So that kind of skews your percentage a little bit. Next one is your debt service and your capital projects funds. You can see we have no revenues in those accounts so far this year. At the bottom, you can see where we have most of the funds in what particular general fund, whether it's the general fund or the debt service fund, capital improvements fund, or special projects fund. And then to the right of that, you can see how we have it invested.
Kevin, do they make us have like an R&R account, I'm sure?
A what?
Like an R&R, like a reserve account that you have to put so much in it? The state's.
Contingency?
It's not really contingency. They call it R&R, but it's like through the state, it's reserve and, it's kind of like a depreciation reserve, is what I call it. It's a repair reserve, basically, but I know they make the PSDs put like 2.5% of, your billing income into it every month. And I mean, you can take it out and spend, but they make you put it in there, and if you don't, then you're out of compliance. And I wondered if they did that with the.
We don't have, nothing's mandated that we do that, their recommendation. We call that the contingency account.
Okay.
And they recommend that you always maintain a 3 to 5% contingency of your, I think it's 2 months, of your annual salary, annual expenses. So.
Well, I mean, just this past year, that they, were really going through the audits are making sure that you do that now. And I just, before they requested that you do it, but they didn't really enforce it, but they are now, so I just didn't know if that was the same thing here.
Yeah, it's similar. It's just a recommendation at all boards of education level. And we're seeing too, as time goes on, more compliance checking in audits as opposed to actual checks and deposits. They're looking at what are the rules and are you following all the rules. And so you get a lot more of those compliance type issues that the auditors are looking at in more detail now.
And there are a lot of counties surrounding Nicholas County that are either in deficit or on the watch list. Am I correct, Kevin, that several of our counties that are close to not having that contingency of 1.5%, or if they're not, they're on a watch list, right? By the State Department.
The state has a watch list. I don't know how many counties are on it right now. I know we do. There is one that is monitored, but I'm not sure exactly how many altogether.
I think it would be one of our meetings, there was 30 counties were on the watch list.
Oh, really? We were told that.
One of our meetings.
That's where I got that, was from Howard's
Yeah.
meeting, Howard call.
On that page on your treasurer's report, and the funds listed there, I'm going to shift some of those around to maximize the interest. I'm going to move some of that out of checking it down into a higher rate at savings. I plan to do that over the next 30 days. So I might move as much as half of that balance into a savings account to try to help. If you flip back to our general fund, you can see so far our bank interest is $194,000 for a year. So we've been very successful in shopping that interest rate and trying to get as much as we can back based upon our investment.
Well, we appreciate you looking out for them, and I'm sure the taxpayers, you looking out for the money.
That was one of the questions asked on one of our meetings. Well, we're going to get $131 million. Are we going to be able to put that in the bank and draw interest on it? Well, no, it's a reimbursement. So that'd be nice to get interest on 131 or whatever the total's going to be. It'd be nice to be able to collect interest on that, but
we're not even able to get it.
But that's not going to happen.
They can't draw down the state.
We're not
Yeah, they
even
can't
allowed
draw
to
down
earn
the state
any interest on it. Only up to $500 interest is all we're allowed to earn on the funds.
Yeah, and we're not, susceptible to taxes on that interest, are we?
Right.
Like individuals would be.
Right.
So it's a better game for,
Yeah, all that helps your bottom line.
something like that.
Your special revenue fund, which is your federal and state grants, $12.2 million budget. We've received 6.3. You have about 5.8 remaining, or 52% of your budget you've received. Looking at your general fund expenditures, again, a $54 million budget. You've spent $14.7 million. You have $13.8 million in payroll, which leave about $25 million to get you through the rest of the year. And so this is January. You're just about a little over halfway, and you have committed 52% of your budget. Debt service had no expenditures. Capital improvement funds has $931,000 worth of expenditures, and that is either your roofing projects or what we've paid on the FEMA project year to date. And finally, the expenditures for the special revenue fund, $12.2 million budget. We've expended, $4.6 million, $2.6 million in payroll, or $4.9 million federal or state dollars available, and you've spent or committed 60% of your budget. Next item is contracts. We just have one contract, and it's with ZMM, and it's for the renovations for the Dean Memorial Field, and it's rather lengthy. I think he itemizes the different things that he's going to be engineering there for us, and his rates are based upon hourly rates of the personnel within his office that was working on it, and he gives you those hourly rates as part of the contract as well.
So this is work on Dean Memorial Field,
Yes.
and this is paid for out of monies for those schools, right?
That is, yes, exactly.
Is that
That,
428?
no,
No.
this is excess levy facility monies. So the monies that was set aside for Richwood High School and Richwood Middle School, approximately $400,000. Some of that's been used already on some of the upgrades, and so we'll be using more of that for the renovations at Stadium.
Is that part of the flood recovery work that needs to be done? I mean,
This is completely separate from flood. Has nothing to do with the flood at all. It's just levy facility monies that's available, and the stadium just needed a facelift, and we wanted to, with the construction of the new schools, there's not really going to be any need for facility monies, and so the stadium there does need some work, and so we talked to the principals, talked to the superintendent, everyone involved, and felt like that's a good use of those funds.
So we had different people ask what happened to our levy funds for our schools. So the money has been held out and not been spent, it's been saved for those schools. And as Kevin said, we spoke with the Richwood High School principal, the Richwood Middle School principal, we talked to Nicholas County High School and Summersville Middle School principals, and they all agreed that they would like to have their funds used to do upgrades to their football fields, to their stadiums.
The next item is surplus properties, and so we have some computer properties that's no longer needed, and so we'd like to ask the board to declare those surplus. And then finally, under miscellaneous, our emergency operations plan is a procedure here at the board, and so our safety committee some time ago had spent several months probably working on going through our existing emergency operations plan that was dated 2006 or 7. And so we went through page by page and updated where it was needed. I believe we added a section for active shooter. And so I just wanted to put this in front of you and let you look at it. And we plan to disperse that out to the schools and let them, they're familiar with the overall plan. We didn't change anything really materially on it, but other than those couple of sections that we added.
Is this developed as a committee, did you say?
Our safety committee here at the board for the entire county. We had yes, yeah, all 4 secondary principals, well, no, a variety of principals, right? Was part of it. We had law enforcement, had some input as well. And so, yeah, it was a well-rounded committee.
And this has been shared with all schools?
Now, I want to bring it to you first and have just let you look at it. I don't think it really requires any action since it's just a procedure. And if you don't have any questions or concerns, we'd like to get that out to the schools as soon as possible. And if you don't want your book when you're done with it, I'll take it back. That'll be one less I have to make for the schools.
Well, it's a procedural thing. The superintendent can also mandate that we put out to the schools.
Okay. But yeah, whenever you're done with them, if you don't want, just let me know. And that's everything under finance, if you have any questions.
This looks like it covers it, I mean, it's
It's
covers
really
a
detailed.
wide range of events that can occur in a school.
In 2007, we spent a lot of time developing that, and we borrowed some procedures from several different counties across the state and developed our own. And it is a good plan. It covers just about anything that can happen.
Does this need signed? Does this need signed?
Oh, we can sign it if you want. Yeah.
Also, do you have the original contracts?
I do.
For
I do.
this one's a copy.
You all, any further questions in regard to finance from Mr. Hess? Yes?
I have a couple other things, if you don't.
You just want to get through.
Kim just reminded me. Our audit is this week, and so there is some signatures. This basically is your conflict of interest statement that each of you will need to sign. There's an engagement letter here, and basically says, just kind of gives the parameters of the audit, what to be looking for, and so there's a copy of that for each of you.
Do you want your note?
Kevin, should this be signed in blue?
No, it does not. It wouldn't be necessary.
So each of us need to sign this document.
Read and sign, please. Yes.
Do you want blue?
You want us to read?
It's the same thing you signed last year.
Well, the legislature, I want you to read it in its entirety to us. No, the entire audit.
Oh, the entire audit? Yeah. Okay. That's your, I'm sorry, that was your planning committee. You're getting a planning letter right there. This is your engagement letter, and it does require signatures.
Okay. Do we all, just me sign that, or do we all
Just you.
sign that one?
Oh, and everyone signs this one, and just the president signs this.
Okay, and it doesn't have to go through.
So if there's any findings, since Gus is the only one signing, then he'll be the only one who'll account for it.
There you go. I'll let you two
Wait a
start
minute,
to
that's
sign
mine.
that.
Oh,
Yeah. I'm a big guy.
got enough. While you're signing that, if you all want to, I'll have my budget hopefully ready. And so when you're all thinking about your dates and future meetings, I'll be ready about the middle of March for that. So we talked about that earlier. We could do that during the middle of the day or anytime you want.
Don't take off because I want to make sure that I get these signed appropriately in the appropriate place.
Okay.
I mean, there's only 35 documents.
No pressure.
Madam Secretary, I will need a blue pen for some of these signatures.
Right here.
Oh, I've got one here, thank you.
Ready?
Well, I just thought maybe like go on to the meeting and.
Oh.
And maybe we, yes.
You want me to stick around after the meeting? I can go. Gotcha.
You're okay.
Is this man worth the money? No, yes he is. Okay. You've heard the financial presentation this evening. Is there a motion to approve finance items A, B, C, D, E, and F as presented? Mrs. Kaufman moves. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Berry seconds. Any further discussion on finance items? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I was reading.
I was reading too, sir.
I would like to play reading.
Maybe you need
Mr.
to do
Amick,
that again.
Yeah.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary, passes unanimously.
Okay.
Mr. Hess, thank you, thank you. Good report, thank you.
I'm not opposed to that. I'm going to make it 4-1.
Sorry about that. Mrs. Atkins or Madam Superintendent, is there a need for an executive session in regard to personnel?
No.
Okay. Proceed then.
Okay, you have before you the updated personnel agenda. The changes are highlighted. And then there's also some additional leave requests on the back, the third sheet. So the updated version has been made available to the public, including the press, so unless you request, I won't read the changes aloud.
Question on the second one from the top. Have they been released from Greenbrier County? Or
Not
will that
yet.
be next year?
Probably next year.
I think that's great. He's an outstanding math teacher.
Good. And we need that at Richmond High School. We need that.
We have all of our coaches for spring sports.
Oh, you know, I don't know, I think we do.
Oh, okay. Okay. Any questions for Mrs. Atkins? Mrs. Atkins, have you presented the media with a copy of this?
Yes.
Okay. You have. Is there any further questions, or do you still need some more time to review the personnel? Hearing no further questions?
I'd just like to say that I know it looks like we're hiring some bus drivers, and is that going well with the bus driver training?
These actually are current bus drivers who are moving buses. If you see over there where they're vacating other buses, one's coming off the sub list. We have had some bus driver training, and Rocky and Connie have been handling that primarily. I think it's been going well.
It's going well. We have 13, we're down to 12. Pretty good retention rates thus far. So we're hopeful it gets good drivers, some additional drivers.
Okay, no problem. Any further questions on personnel? Is there a motion to approve the personnel agenda as presented this evening?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Berry moves. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Rogers seconds. Any further discussion in regard to personnel? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. We're on to item 8 this evening, which is superintendent's information. And Madam Superintendent, do you have any information for this board?
I do. We've talked about the process tonight of purchasing property, the FEMA process, and moving forward. Some other things I think that, I need to address as your superintendent. There was an article published in February called Good News Not So Good for Richwood Students, and written by Caleb Hanna. And he made several allegations. Well, actually, let me go get another. I've got some statements here that it's important that I read. I just think it's time that this comes to an end and we move forward. And I hate to be considered the villain all the time because of misinformation, and I hate for this board to be considered the villain all the time because of the false information. So, first of all, he criticizes us, the same as Mr. Moose did, about saying 3 schools. We've never said 3 schools. We've been pretty open from the beginning of a mediated agreement of what will be replaced. And he also goes on to talk about those 2 facilities that did not flood. Again, Nicholas County High School and Career Technical Education Center. One of the things that's unfortunate is that Delegate Hanna doesn't realize the cost savings this is to this county. And I don't think he realizes the importance of county boards, because he did speak in a meeting about a year ago how he thought county boards of education need to be done away with. So he doesn't understand the importance of this board. He doesn't understand the importance of balancing a budget, paying bills. But of course, you would have to be probably on your own and have held a job and paid bills before you realize all of those types of responsibilities. As a school system, that is your responsibility, is to keep a balanced budget, to keep the school system operating. So the K-12 facility, again, meeting the mediation plans. He says it's a K-12. We've never said that it's a K-12. Mediated agreement says that each school shall maintain their identity and their mascots in separations. There will be a Richwood High School, a Richwood Middle School, and a Cherry River Elementary. And there will be a Nicholas County High School, and there will be a Somersville Middle School. It's not a K through 12. And he talks about the construction will go on right on top of the students' heads, children who have already been through this trial after trial in their temporary facilities. So again, you heard the architect talk. Mr. Hanna's never talked with him to find out about the process and how this will be handled. He also says, second, he has issue with the phrase schools critically damaged. Of course, that's not our term, that's FEMA's terms. And by that, anyone who saw Richwood High School after the flood could see it sustained minimal damage. Well, I'll point out to Mr. Caleb Hanna, Delegate Hanna, that the Richwood City Council signed the papers stating that they voted stating that those schools did sustain substantial damage, and they're the ones that signed it. So it's not any, shouldn't be any shock to anyone. So then he talks about when he says it sustained minimal damage. He says, in fact, it was so dry, I quote, so dry that band parents volunteered the day of the flood to take instruments across the parking lot from the band room in Richwood Middle and put them in high school classrooms. This was even before ServPro came in and cleaned the high school spick and span, okay? That's one of his quotes. We collected money for those band instruments. So if that was accurate, I needed to launch a FEMA investigation, and I did. So I had the principal to contact Mr. James, and I also contacted Gene Collins, because Gene Collins signed his name stating these things were damaged. And Greg James also participated. So Greg James provided me with a notice today that said the 2016 flood inundated the Richwood High School band room with several feet of water and mud. There was substantial damage to uniforms, instruments, equipment, and memorabilia. As soon as the water receded, a team of volunteers began moving the things that were not underwater to a dry area inside of the main RHS building to avoid additional damage by sitting in mud and dampness. So either Delegate Hanna either blatantly lied or he was grossly misinformed. And he was a student at that time, so I really don't know which it is and don't really care, but I want to set the record straight. I have made sure not to claim anything that we should not have claimed. We've only claimed items that were damaged by the flood as we should have. So his statement there really, really bothered me. And he does go on to make several other statements that are absolutely unfounded, and you know, the losses, and I could go through and point out every single thing, but I won't unless you have questions, and if you've read the West Virginia Record, I'll be happy to answer any of those questions. But I have two statements. I also have one from Gene Collins, and I have pictures that shows water was very high in that room, and a lot of instruments were damaged. So it just bothers me because the statement that he made about, you know, he's trying to act like he says the scheme worked. So he's trying to say that we're scamming the system. I'm not scamming the system. I did what I was supposed to do, documented everything appropriately, and this delegate is definitely misinformed. So I don't know if you have any questions. Again, he has several allegations that are just absolutely silly. But
Donna, a lot of us went through that building, and there was water, you know, evident water line. You'd wade through the mud to get in there, 6 or 8 inches of it.
I know that, Mr. Berry, but the thing that bothers me is that he went and he made a newspaper article. He put an article in the West Virginia Record that has now been published, and he is accusing us as being, he says this project will forever be tainted by the stink of scandal. There's not been anything scandalous that's gone on, and I challenge him to prove it. So he's either doing some political grandstanding or he's grossly misinformed, and it troubles me that that he has made such statements. So and he's continued to do this, and as often as he continues to do this, I plan to write rebuttals and to address each time. You know, he talked about how I said the buildings were connected. I didn't say buildings were connected. The buildings that was used as a campus concept, multiple facilities being used as a campus. That's something that FEMA advised us that we could do, and we did do. So tell me, what would make sense? The initial report that said 17%, as the school continued to settle, they continued to find more damages. And the Army Corps of Engineers came in, and they rated it at a higher amount of damage than what the ZMM contractors rated it at. So did I have the Army Corps of Engineers under some type of spell? And one of the other things that really troubled me is his lack of understanding. Again, I understand the finances. I'm sure he doesn't quite grasp that yet, but one day he will. But when we had an assessment of 17%, had it gone forward with just 17% and not more, and more damages had not appeared, my job to find out to maximize the amount of money we get, we would have only been reimbursed for 17% of the replacement of that school. That means the taxpayers would have carried the burden. Richwood taxpayers, the east side, the west side, The whole county. They would have had that type of expense that I don't think the taxpayers should have to bear. But if it met over that 50% threshold, we got 100% replacement cost. They also failed to say, and he said in here, that those schools were cleaned and could have been used again. The schools were in the floodway. And in June of 2016, that term was created, and that is the most dangerous flow of water flow is in the floodway. Prior to that, the schools were not designated as a floodway, but they are now. So I think it's important. I know that this board based their decisions on moving forward and keeping student safety as the key primary concern. And so people who are, and I gave a presentation in July, and I actually have it here with me tonight, in July of 2019, explaining why the schools were demolished, explained every bit of it. And again, the Richwood City Council signed off on it, and they signed off on the demolition. So for people who are getting on social media and providing inaccurate information, that's shameful. And then for this delegate to go on and repeat such information is, it doesn't speak highly of him. So it's time to start addressing some of these concerns. Any questions about that?
Well, I think it's a shame somebody writes fairy tales and puts them in the official record. You know, it's misinformation, every bit of it. And it bothers me more that he doesn't even pay taxes, and he's representing everybody.
Okay.
I'd like to say something if I could. Go up there.
Yeah.
I'd like to.
Kevin, I want to show you outside. So you get out.
I was impacted by the flood as much, I feel, as, and maybe even more so than some of the people in Richwood. We lost our business to the flood, or we lost our church to the flood. But you know, we come back and we've rebuilt, and it's like Luke said, you know, we're better for it now. And I know that when we get these schools built, we're going to be better for it. And whenever I was, actually my brother Luke, you know, came to me and said, would you consider running for the Board of Education? I was dealing with all this flood stuff myself. I don't do social media. I don't do Facebook. I don't want to do it. Most of it's just misinformation. But he said, you know, I think, you know, that they need somebody in there to take Daryl's place that is going to do what's right. That it's going to do the common sense thing. That's what he said to me. And, you know, I thought about it first. I said, no, I'm not interested. I got, you know, too many other fires and fire. But then I got to thinking about it, and I thought, you know, my kids are growing, but I do have grandkids that are, you know, going to be in these schools that are going to come up. And so I decided to run for the board, and I'm glad that I did. And, you know, Mr. Moose said, well, this is considered the 5-0 board. You know, I'm just proud that I can be a part of a board where we are unified, and where it's not a lot of bickering around. And I mean, I would think that, you know, I know each one of you all pretty well now. I didn't hardly know any of you when I first got on the board, but, you know, I think that I know you well enough to know that if there was something that was amiss, I wouldn't vote for it. But the fact that we are united, I think is what we need to push this county forward, and I mean the whole county. And so I just felt like I needed to say that.
We're glad you're here. Okay.
Let me just say one little thing about what Dr. Tetrick said. It's election year. We haven't seen that young man for 3 years at any meeting. We did. Maybe he was at the EA meeting at Richwood, but I don't remember him talking to us. That was Gus and Donna and I there at the table. I don't know how any of them can be informed. They come to meetings and give us their opinions and then leave before any of this is discussed. And then they, I guess they're hurrying home to get on their computers or phones to bash us, but completely uninformed. But to be in that position and stand up on the floor of the House of Delegates and really not know what you're talking about, it's really kind of embarrassing for him. And I feel bad about it because nothing he said was informed, was factual. And it's pretty bad, and honestly, he probably got his information from other people because he didn't get it from this board. He didn't get it from the facts or the information, so.
Correct. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Rogers, yeah. Okay, reports. Mr. Rogers, did you attend the SESC?
Have a meeting Wednesday. We didn't have one last month, but I gave you guys a copy of this. This is from Coach Little, the softball coach at Richwood, and he put this together, put a lot of work behind it actually, and I shared it and talked to Rocky, and I think Kevin got a copy of it also, and Rocky and I and Coach Little are going to meet down at the Richwood Field sometime here in the next few days and take a look, try to get the folks from the city of Richwood there also, but he's got some safety concerns. Kevin, he did say the border risk was there. I don't know if they came from the city since they own the park or what, but they did give him some findings with some of the bleachers and all that, so I'm going to kind of help him get that straightened out down there, and I may come back to the board if there's some expense. I don't foresee it being a lot of expense, but I don't know if some of that maintenance money that's going into Deanfield, I don't know if we can, if there's any left over with that money that we might be able to use to bring some of this, the bleachers mainly I think is concerned, bring it into compliance, and maybe some netting or something for when they have two games going on at the same time. But I told him that I would bring this to the board and share it with you, and we're going to start working on that real soon. And one other thing, the teams at Richwood use our building at the St. Luke's Church for their practices, and Rocky did put some cages over the thermostats because I guess they broke one last year, but we've had some exterminators in there to put up some of these things now that are couple things to take care of some insect problems, and I'm worried about getting that broken too. And I talked to Rocky about that too. If we can just maybe get some people in there and put some cages over those, because it might be kind of expensive if they break one of those. It'd be a lot less expensive to put a couple cages over those than it would be to replace them. So
You mentioned that.
I talked to Rocky
Okay.
about it. He says he's going to call Joe Butler, who's our person kind of in charge of that building.
Any other reports? I would mention that Delegate Assembly for the School Boards Association is this Saturday in Charleston. I will be attending since I am an officer of the School Boards Association. And I will bring back materials that we receive at that. I assume that we will have time on Friday to visit the legislature, and I plan to talk to some legislators about upcoming legislative issues. So I will get back with you all the next board meeting as to what occurs. Item 10 on this evening's agenda is items for next agenda. Any items? Hearing none? Oh. Go ahead.
Well, this is kind of pertaining to our starting time. I know I was going to motion, that we set it at 5 o'clock, and if no one has a problem with it, I mean, I don't know if we'd want to keep it at that at least till summer hours, or
What's the board's thinking?
Well, I was going to bring that up also. I think the way our people in the central staff are just covered up with working with the superintendent on flood issues for the buildings, Maybe we should just keep that at least through May.
For schools out and
Just food for thought, that's my opinion.
They do spend long hours here.
I have no problem, and make sure all the hours shorter too. I mean, you get home, everybody wants to get home at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, if you don't have to.
Well, we've been here since 5 and look at the time. So if that's 7 like it was before, it'd be 10 to 11.
So, Mrs. Kaufman, based upon a nod from all 4 other board members, you get your way.
Okay, you win.
I agree with you. We'll keep continuing at 5 o'clock until Mrs. Kaufman decides something else.
I'm just trying to look out for our staff.
Until further notice.
Until further notice.
So I'm good at leaving the notice at 5?
And we appreciate that.
Yes, thank you.
March the 2nd is our next regularly scheduled meeting. That's 2 weeks from tonight at 5 p.m. And then March the 16th, we will be setting up time with Mr. Hess to work on, do a budget meeting. And we'll probably do that during the day because it's the staffs here that he has to work with, and I don't want to bring his staff back in. And I think that's, if we can get it during the day, we'll try to schedule it during the day. Is that okay?
I think we ought to meet about 10 o'clock at night.
Okay. I'll let you take that, Mr. Hess. Okay, any other discussions to come before the board? If not, is there a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting?
So moved.
Mr. Amick moves. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Berry seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Madam Secretary, the motion passes 5-0.
No, I oppose.
Oh,
So it's a 4-1.
4-1. And the time is at 8:12 p.m.